You're hungry. You go to your favorite spot, order a bacon smash burger, and hand over $15. A couple of years ago, that same $15 got you the burger, fries, and a drink. Today, it barely covers the sandwich. Your money didn't disappear, it just got weak. Welcome to inflation, the invisible force quietly eating your paycheck. We measure our wealth in dollars, but dollars are just pieces of paper or pixels on a banking app. Their only inherent value is what they can trade for in the real world. Think about that $15 bacon smash burger. When the price of the burger goes up to $18, you naturally think, wow, the burger got more expensive. Economics looks at it backwards. The burger didn't change at all. Your dollar just got cheaper. It takes more of your dollars to buy the exact same amount of beef, cheese, and bread. So what? If you only stare at the number in your bank account, you are hallucinating your own net worth. You aren't worth how many dollars you have. You are worth what those dollars can buy. Okay, moving on. This concept is called purchasing power. It is the actual physical volume of goods and services your money can acquire. In 2010, $100 at the grocery store bought you a cart overflowing with food. Today, $100 buys you 2 bags of groceries and a weird look from the cashier. Your purchasing power is constantly draining, like a phone battery that you can never quite charge to 100%. If you stuff $10,000 under your mattress today and wake up in 10 years, the physical cash will still be there, but the purchasing power will have evaporated. So what? Saving pure cash is a guaranteed way to slowly lose your wealth over time. Cool. Now here's why it happens. Inflation usually triggers for one of 2 main reasons. The first is demand-pull inflation. This happens when everybody suddenly has cash and wants to buy the exact same stuff. The demand literally pulls the price up. Think about trying to get an Uber at 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve. There are only a few drivers, but 100 guys are trying to get home. The algorithm spikes the price. The same thing happens in the broader economy. If people suddenly have more disposable income, they rush to buy cars, sneakers, and gaming PCs. But factories haven't magically produced more of those things. If 100 people line up for our $15 bacon smash burger and the chef only has 50 patties, that burger is instantly going to $20. So what? When there is too much money chasing too few goods, businesses will always raise prices until demand cools off. Simple as that. Now let's look at the other cause. The second reason is cost-push inflation. This happens when the raw materials needed to make a product suddenly get more expensive. The rising costs push the final price up. Let's look at the smash burger again. If a drought kills off a bunch of cattle, beef gets rare. If supply chains break down, the diesel fuel needed to run the delivery trucks triples in price. The restaurant owner now has to pay more for the beef, more for the buns, and more to keep the lights on. They aren't trying to rip you off. If they keep selling the burger for $15, they go bankrupt. So they push that cost onto you. The burger becomes $18. So what? Even if nobody has extra money to spend, prices can still skyrocket just because the global supply chain is fragile. Okay, but how do we track this mess? The government tracks inflation using something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. It's basically a giant imaginary shopping cart. Economists fill this cart with the stuff a normal person buys: rent, gas, milk, used cars, haircuts, and gym memberships. Every month, they check the price of everything in the cart. If the total cost of the cart goes up by 3% compared to last year, they announce that inflation is at 3%. So what? The CPI is just an average. If you don't drive a car but gas prices double, the CPI might say inflation is 5%, but your personal inflation rate might be totally different depending on your lifestyle. Your reality and the government's math don't always align. Cool. Now let's talk about the sneaky stuff. Sometimes a company knows you will riot if they raise the price. If that $15 bacon smash burger goes to $20, you might just walk out and go to Chipotle. So they use shrinkflation. The price stays exactly $15, but the 4-ounce beef patty quietly becomes a 3-ounce beef patty. The large fries come in a slightly narrower cardboard sleeve. You're paying the exact same amount of money for fewer calories. You see this everywhere. Your favorite bag of Doritos has more air. Your bottle of Gatorade goes from 32 ounces to 28 ounces. So what? Businesses know human psychology. We notice price changes instantly, but we're terrible at noticing volume changes. They hide inflation in the packaging. Gross, but it gets worse. Skimpflation is shrinkflation's ugly cousin. This is when the price stays the same, the volume stays the same, but the quality falls off a cliff. The smash burger stays at 4 ounces and it still costs $15, but the restaurant stops using fresh ground chuck and switches to a cheaper frozen meat blend. They swap the real butter on the buns for cheap seed oils. You see this in services too. Your monthly gym membership stays at $40, but they fire the cleaning staff, so the locker rooms are always filthy. The airline ticket costs the same, but you no longer get a free carry-on bag or a real human at customer service. So what? Inflation doesn't just drain your wallet, it degrades the quality of your entire life. Okay, but shouldn't your job fix this? Here is the most painful part of inflation: wage stagnation. Prices change dynamically. If the cost of beef goes up on Tuesday, the smash burger goes up on Wednesday, but your paycheck does not change dynamically. You agree to a salary once a year. If inflation spikes by 8% in January, you have to wait until your annual review in December to beg for a raise. And usually your boss offers you a standard 3% bump. Mathematically, you just took a 5% pay cut. You're working the exact same hours, producing the exact same value, but you can buy less stuff. So what? In an inflationary environment, your salary is constantly decaying. If your raise doesn't beat the CPI, you're losing ground. Cool. Now let's look at who actually likes this system. Surprise, inflation isn't bad for everyone. Debtors absolutely love inflation. Imagine you borrow $400,000 to buy a house on a fixed 30-year mortgage. Your monthly payment is locked in forever. Over the next 10 years, inflation runs hot. The price of everything goes up. Salaries eventually go up, but your mortgage payment stays exactly the same. You get to pay back your massive 2026 debt using weak, watered-down 2036 dollars. This is why governments, who owe trillions of dollars in national debt, actually rely on inflation. It slowly vaporizes the real weight of what they owe. So what? If you hold fixed-rate, long-term debt attached to a physical asset, inflation is silently working in your favor. Okay, now for the victims. The biggest losers in inflation are savers and people on fixed incomes. If you did exactly what your grandpa told you, hard worked, saved $100 grand in cash, and put it in a basic checking account, you are getting destroyed. That cash is melting like an ice cube on a hot sidewalk. Retirees relying on a fixed monthly pension suffer the most because their check stays the exact same while the cost of their groceries and medicine doubles. So what? Being financially conservative and hoarding cash is the riskiest thing you can do when the money supply is expanding. You're playing by the rules of a game that ended 50 years ago. Cool. So how does the government stop it? When inflation gets out of control, the central bank, which is the Federal Reserve in the US, has to step in. They only have one major tool: interest rates. The interest rate is simply the cost of borrowing money. When the Fed raises rates, it suddenly becomes wildly expensive to get a mortgage, finance a new car, or carry a balance on your credit card. Business loans become toxic, so everyone stops borrowing. Because they stop borrowing, they stop spending. So what? The Federal Reserve intentionally makes you poorer so you'll stop buying things. It's a brutal, blunt force mechanism, which leads directly to the next phase. By raising interest rates, the Fed causes demand destruction. They want to crush the economy just enough to stop prices from rising, but not enough to cause a depression. Let's go back to our $15 bacon smash burger. If your credit card interest hits $25 and your rent goes up, you no longer can afford to eat out. You stay home and eat pasta. Multiply that by millions of people. The burger joint is suddenly empty. To survive, the restaurant is forced to lower the price of the smash burger back to $12 just to get you through the door. So what? The cure for high prices is high prices. The system relies on consumer pain to reset the market equilibrium. Okay, where do you hide your money while this happens? To survive inflation, you have to move your wealth out of paper money and into hard assets. A hard asset is something that has real intrinsic value and a limited supply. Real estate is a classic example. They aren't making more land. When the dollar loses value, the nominal price of a house goes up to compensate. Stocks are another hedge. If a company sells software or soap and inflation hits, they just raise the price of the software and the soap. Their revenue goes up and their stock price eventually follows. Even things like gold act as lifeboats. So what? Wealthy people don't keep their net worth in cash. They own pieces of the real world that naturally float on top of the inflationary tide. Cool. Now let's see what happens if it goes too far. If a government prints way too much money to pay its debts and the citizens completely lose faith in the currency, you get hyperinflation. This is when prices double every month or even every day. Think of historical examples like Zimbabwe or the Weimar Republic in Germany, where people literally needed wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. Or if you play video games, think of MMOs like World of Warcraft. When players figure out how to farm infinite gold, the price of basic auction house items skyrockets into the millions. The currency becomes a joke. So what? Hyperinflation destroys a society. All savings are wiped out and the economy devolves back into a barter system. But the opposite is also terrifying. You might be thinking, hey, I want prices to go down. Deflation sounds great. It's actually an economic nightmare. Deflation is when money gains value over time, so prices continuously drop. If you know that an OLED TV will be 20% cheaper next month, you won't buy it today. You'll wait. But everyone else waits too. Consumer spending completely freezes. Because nobody is buying TVs, the electronics store fires its staff. Those unemployed people stop buying smash burgers, so the restaurant goes under. It triggers a massive deflationary death spiral. So what? A dropping price tag sounds awesome until you realize your job is the first thing that gets cut to make it happen. Okay, so what is the actual goal?
Because hyperinflation destroys cash and deflation destroys jobs, central banks aim for a sweet spot, 2% annual inflation. It is a completely made-up target, but it serves a psychological purpose. 2% is low enough that you don't panic when you go to the grocery store. It feels stable. But it is just high enough to act as a gentle treadmill. It forces you to keep moving. Because you know your cash is losing 2% of its value every year, you are incentivized to invest it, start a business, or buy assets. The mild panic keeps the gears of the economy turning. So what? The system is deliberately designed to slowly drain your cash. It is not an accident. It is the fundamental architecture of modern money.
You cannot vote inflation away. You cannot complain it out of existence. It is a math equation. If you want to survive it, you have to change your behavior. First, you must increase your income faster than the CPI. You have to job hop, acquire rare skills, or start a side hustle. Sitting in one chair waiting for a 3% raise is financial suicide. Second, you must stop storing your energy in fiat currency. Build an emergency fund, but deploy the rest of your capital into diversified assets like index funds. You have to own the things that get more expensive. So what? You are playing a game of musical chairs with your purchasing power. Don't be the guy left holding a bag of cash when the music stops.